Everybody feels bad. I know, I'm a therapist. Everybody is so determined to perfect their argument, deliver it concisely, and make sure that they walk away from every conflict unscathed and understood. I should know, I'm an educator. But the most difficult part of my job is trying to convince people to not avoid the most needed depth of their prejudices to other populations and to other people, and making sure that we lie them to rest. I know, I'm a deaf doula. Hi, my name is Dr. Shania Thomas. My pronouns are he or she. I don't use they. But when all else fails, please use doctor. It's expensive. I'm going into my 20th year as being a licensed clinical social worker who specializes in therapy, education, and also thinking about strategic planning around the field of mental health and clinician development. I am also the LGBTQ training specialist at the University of Maryland, College Park, in the School of Public Health, representing the Prevention Research Center. Over the years, my trainings around inclusive sex and gender education have shifted, more so because our experiences around sexuality have become more exciting, more complex, and nuanced as we grow. Yet, I always have a perfect example to show people, especially when they are considering how their discomfort and their complexities are also getting in the way of being open and receptive to other people's experiences. I give the example of thinking about one of our most iconic voices of our generation, Kim Kardashian. I know you are not expecting to hear that name today, but stick with me. The meme where she is swimming somewhere where I can't afford, and she's considering, oh my gosh, I'm trying to find my diamond earrings. I think something's wrong. And then she turns to her sister who frantically shakes her head and says, Kim, there's people that are dying. Now, usually I get a chuckle from the audience, thank you. But also I want you to consider that sometimes we're Kim when we are trying to swim in an ocean and we're trying to figure out what is a way that we can move forward and think about these complexities and the comfortability that we experience. We get weepy and resistant. We are lost in the sea of our own emotions. We have trouble being able to figure out what's ahead of us, what's behind us, when in reality, we're just smack in the middle of it. It is then I like to bring out the glaring statistic of Williams Institute in 2001 saying that 51% of LGBTQ adults experience some level of trauma after the age of 18. It's also considering that the Human Rights Campaign has reported that as of October of this year, we have lost 26 transgender and gender nonconforming people to violence that we know of. So I say to the audience, yes, these facts may seem uncomfortable, and yes, it's going to be hard to go through a process and to figure out what feels good because it all feels uncomfortable, and it's all going to feel bad. But I would also like to say that, unfortunately, the experiences that you are having learning in a classroom in this space are not as bad as the experiences that people are having out in the real world. People are dying. From a therapist's point of view, I would like to say that we are not having a conversation about the jarring emotional experiences around learning about inclusion because they generally make us all uncomfortable. We are trying to think of this concept of bringing a group of people into a space that have never been in a space before and making it all fit. And then we had the experience where our voices are softened a little bit, we're not as seen in the way that we used to, and our spaces are a little bit cramped. And then I have to ask people, well, how are you handling that feeling? I would like to say that I would hate to tell you that feeling bad is part of the process. We all need to make sure that we're thinking about when we are placing people in a space, how are we building that table for them? It is the opportunity to think about that we actually take our learned personal experiences and we apply them to people or places or groups of folks. And then most of the time we're wrong. And then we shame ourselves. We get sad and upset. And then we really think about, oh, I don't need to be doing this work. I'm actually gonna quit. But you know what actually happens? We stop growing. So then I have to say, how do we think about ways that we want to be more inclusive? I think I want to suggest to you the opportunity of taking the leap, figuring out how it works for you, knowing that this process actually does feel bad. As an educator, I like to think about inclusion and diversity as a way that we're emotionally stretching ourselves and considering how, when inclusion, sometimes we think that it feels like a hug, but it really feels like a rub. Because to be honest with you, if somebody came to you and took some of your space and didn't give you as much as you're used to having, you actually wouldn't like that. And I should know, I have a 5-year-old. And when I also consider how are we going to get to that place, we really need to consider that change is a process. And it is about how are we going to process and think about our emotions. What are the ways that we are helping people move to the next step to be able to make space for them when we might have too much space for ourselves? This is the opportunity when I want to offer the new path of inclusion, which is where we want to think about how do we walk along to make sure that everybody is considered and also that we are held accountable for the things that we are bringing into the space. All those DEI trainings that you have been in at your jobs and at your schools, what is a way that you're using those in your personal life and after you go home and after you clock out? Who is holding your feet to the fire? Being able to make sure that they're uplifting you when things feel hard and you feel triggered and things feel a little rough. We all need community. We all need support. We all need to find a way in order to make it to the next step. Because I know for me, it doesn't matter what space I'm in, whether I'm talking to social workers around LGBTQ mental health, whether I'm talking to public health practitioners around race and ethnicity, whether I'm thinking about community members and talking with them about working with folks with HIV, or if I'm talking to every single person about the importance of disability justice. I want you to know that I love my community so much that I take it home with me to be able to care about my friends, my family, my community, and my child. Because for me, inclusion is not just a DEI word. It's not just a concept. Inclusion is not just a work skill. It's a life skill. This is where we need to consider that inclusion, or the power of inclusion, is a way that we are working through being uncomfortable, getting support, being able to branch out, consider community, what we need when things get uncomfortable, and not quit. I encourage you to think about inclusion as a way to liberate yourselves from being emotionally perfect, because yes, all of us feel bad. And I should know, because I feel bad too. But one thing I can tell you is that feeling bad together is so much better than dying. Thank you.